I saved a girl's life, but in return the chief gave me a punishment worse than death. Say yes, and I married a woman who was a secret to the entire tribe. Say no, and this desert would become my kingdom. Hook, line. Everyone rejected her. Everyone was afraid of her. And now she was my wife. The desert sun fell like liquid fire when Ethan Miller reached the Apache camp. He had spent 3 days searching for little Tala, the chief's granddaughter. He found her in a dry canyon, dehydrated, nearly out of strength. Now the girl ran happily among the tents, but Ethan only wanted to return to his ranch. "You saved my blood," Chief said, his black eyes shining under the sun. "Our tradition demands we pay this debt. Honor requires it." Ethan shook his head. "I need nothing, Chief. Seeing the girl well is enough. I have something to offer you," the old man continued, his voice growing grave. "But I must be honest. It's something no one has wanted to accept." Ethan's stomach tightened. What terrible thing could it be? Cursed lands? An old horse? "I have a daughter, Nahimana, 20 summers, strong, healthy, intelligent." The chief paused. "No warrior in our tribe has wanted to marry her." Ethan's world stopped marriage. If she was young and healthy, what could be so wrong? A hidden illness? Madness? What horrible secret was concealed? "You may refuse," said with dignity, "but then you must leave these lands forever. Our honor will be stained if you don't accept. These are our customs." Ethan swallowed. He couldn't take another route. It would mean weeks of detour through dangerous territory. His cattle were waiting, and besides, how terrible could it be? "Can I meet her first? You decide now, yes or no." Ethan's heart beat like a drum. 25 years old. Never married, always busy with the ranch. Maybe this woman was just shy. Maybe. "I accept." The chief's eyes shone with something that looked like relief. "Oh, good." He gave an order in Apache, and 2 elderly women came out of a tent. Between them walked a figure completely covered in a blanket of bright colors. Ethan felt his legs tremble. The figure stopped in front of him. She was of medium height. He could see that. Everything else was hidden. "Nahimana," the chief announced. "This is Ethan Miller. He saved your niece. He is now your husband." An old woman slowly removed the blanket. Ethan prepared his face to show no horror. He prepared his mind to accept whatever it was. He prepared his heart, for the blanket fell. Ethan blinked, then blinked again. His mouth opened slightly. In front of him stood the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in his life. Naimana had hair black as night, long to her waist, shining under the sun. Her skin was the color of earth after rain. Her almond-shaped eyes were deep, the color of dark honey. Delicate but strong features, high cheekbones, perfect lips. A traditional Apache dress showed a slender, strong figure. There were no scars, no deformities, nothing was wrong. "But why?" Ethan stammered, confused. Nahimana looked directly at him without lowering her gaze. Her eyes were cold, almost challenging. She didn't smile, showed no emotion, only observed him as if he were a problem to be solved. "The ceremony will be at dawn," the chief announced. "Then you may leave that night." Ethan didn't sleep. They had given him a tent near the river. He listened to the sounds of the camp, conversations in Apache he didn't understand. His mind wouldn't stop spinning. What was wrong with Nahimana? There had to be something. Men didn't reject a woman like that without reason. Was she violent? Crazy? Did she have some power that frightened everyone? The dawn ceremony was brief. Ethan and Nahimana stood before the chief as the sun rose over the mountains. Tied their wrists with leather cord and spoke in Apache. Nahimana didn't look at him once. When he finished, the chief cut the cord and handed it to Ethan. "Now you are one. Take care of her, white man. She is more valuable than you know." Nahimana was already walking toward a horse. She mounted with a fluid motion that spoke of years of practice. She didn't even check if Ethan was following. As they rode, Ethan tried to speak. "Nahimana, I'm sorry if this isn't what you wanted." Absolute silence. "Can you at least say something?" Nothing. She looked ahead, back straight, hands firm on the reins. 2 hours later, Ethan saw marks on the trail. "Wait, there are fresh tracks here. Many horses." Nahimana had already dismounted. She knelt beside the tracks, running her fingers over the earth with incredible precision. She studied the marks for 30 seconds, then pointed west without looking at him. "What did you see?" She mounted again and changed direction, moving away from the main trail. Ethan followed, more confused than ever. Hours later, they reached a small valley. Nahimana prepared a fire in minutes, efficient, perfect movements. She took food from her bag and organized it precisely. Nahimana, Ethan sat nearby. We're going to be together, so maybe we could try to talk. She looked at him for the first time since the ceremony, her deep eyes impossible to read. For a moment, it seemed she would say something. Her lips parted. Then she looked away and continued her work. Ethan's ranch appeared on the third day. A wooden house with 2 rooms, a stable, a barn and a corral. It wasn't much, but it was his. Nahimana observed without expression. She showed no disappointment or approval, just looked. This is your home now, Ethan said nervously. I know it's not much. She was already dismounting, taking her horse to the stable. Ethan followed her inside. The interior was simple. 6 stalls, 2 horses, hay stored. Nahimana examined every corner with critical eyes, ran her hand over the walls, checked the hinges, inspected the hay, then shook her head. What's wrong? She pointed to a beam on the ceiling, then another, made a gesture that clearly meant it's going to fall. Those beams are fine, Ethan protested. I put them in myself 2 years ago. Nahimana shrugged, her first personal gesture, and continued unpacking. The message was clear. I warned you. Inside the house, Ethan felt strange. This is the main room. I'll sleep on the sofa. You can have this room. I don't expect. Nahimana walked in, dropped her bag, and closed the door in his face. The following days were strange. Nahimana rose before dawn. Ethan never heard her. She was simply already awake. She prepared a perfect breakfast in silence. Then she disappeared. The first time he panicked. She was gone, but her horse was still there, her things, too. He found her behind the house on rocky ground he had ignored. Nahimana had cleared the stones, creating a small garden. She was planting seeds with mathematical precision. What are you planting? Silence. Do you need help? She didn't even look at him. Ethan sighed and returned to his tasks. 20 head of cattle needed attention, fences to repair. By sunset, the garden was 3 times larger. Nahimana had worked all day without rest. More surprising, she had repaired the coral fence using techniques that seemed stronger than his original work. That's impressive, he said honestly. She went into the house without answering. At the silent, perfect dinner, Ethan tried again. I know you didn't want to marry me, but we're in this together. She stood, took her plate to the kitchen, and went to the room. You can't keep ignoring me, Ethan burst out. I'm your husband. The door closed softly. On the 4th day, Ethan heard noises in the stable before dawn. He ran out. It was Nahimana working with his mare that had been limping. She had the hoof lifted, examining it with expert fingers. She extracted a small thorn Ethan had never seen and applied a paste of herbs. The mare, normally nervous, was completely calm. How did you do that? He whispered, amazed. I tried to check that hoof dozens of times. Nahimana put away her tools and left the stable, leaving him with his mouth open. That afternoon, while Ethan was repairing the barn roof, he heard his neighbor Tom approach on horseback. Ethan, I heard you got married. Is it true she's an Indian? Apache. Ethan corrected, feeling uncomfortable. Well, be careful, friend. Those people are strange. She'll probably steal everything and leave. Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. Tom, I'd appreciate it if you left. Nahimana is my wife and deserves respect. Tom raised his hands. Whatever you say. I'm just saying the whole town is talking. An Indian living here isn't going to be easy. When Tom left, Ethan noticed Nahimana standing at the corner of the house. She had heard everything. Her dark eyes looked at him for a long moment. Something indefinable in her expression. Then she disappeared again. That night, for the first time, Nahimana prepared a special meal, an Apache stew with herbs Ethan didn't recognize but tasted incredible. When they finished, she didn't get up immediately. She sat looking at him. Ethan waited, his heart racing. Finally, she would speak. Nahimana opened her mouth. Her voice was soft but clear as water over stones. Thank you. One word. Then she rose and went to her room. Ethan sat frozen. She had spoken. After nearly a week, she had said something, and her voice was beautiful. 2 weeks passed. Nahimana spoke occasionally now, never more than 2 or 3 words, but it was progress. Water's ready. Careful, her garden grew miraculously. Plants Ethan didn't recognize sprouted strongly. The cattle seemed healthier. The fences she repaired never failed. The town started talking more. Some neighbors visited with foolish excuses, curious to see the mysterious Indian woman. Nahimana ignored them, working without pause. One night Ethan woke to a strange sound, a soft creak, almost imperceptible. He sat up on the sofa in the living room, listening. Everything seemed quiet, but something was wrong. An instinct he didn't know he had screamed danger. He rose silently, went to the window. The moon lit the yard. Everything normal. Maybe it had been his imagination. A movement near the stable. A shadow. Ethan's heart raced. He went quickly to Nahimana's room. Nahimana, wake up. Someone's outside. The bed was empty. Panic, where was she? He looked out the bedroom window. Nothing. He returned to the living room just as the front door slowly opened. 3 men entered. Outlaws by their appearance. Dirty clothes, hard faces, knives on their belts. The biggest one smiled, showing rotten teeth. Good evening, friend, he said in a rough voice. We don't want trouble. Just your money. Your horses, maybe that food that smells so good. Ethan raised his hands. I don't have much money. Take whatever you want. Just don't hurt anyone. Anyone? The outlaw looked around. You live alone. I heard you married an Indian. Where is she? Gone. Ethan lied. Back to her tribe, liar. The second outlaw pointed to the room. There are women's clothes in there. The third man, younger and nervous, said, Boss, we should hurry. If there's someone else. Shut up. The leader advanced toward Ethan. Where's the Indian? Maybe she's worth more than your horses. Ethan felt fury. Don't you dare. The outlaw drew his knife. Either you tell us where she is or I start cutting until you talk. At that moment something fell from the ceiling. No, not fell, descended with feline grace. Nahimana landed between Ethan and the outlaws. She had been in the roof beams the whole time. In her hands was a long rope and on her belt an Apache knife. The 3 men froze for a second, startled. Then the leader laughed, a woman. That's all you've got. Nahimana didn't speak, she moved. It was so fast Ethan barely saw it. The rope flew out, tangling around the leader's ankles. Nahimana pulled hard and the big man fell like a felled tree. His head hit the wooden floor with a terrible sound. The second outlaw yelled and drew his knife, lunging at her. Nahimana spun, dodged, used the man's momentum against him, shoving him straight into the table where he crashed over chairs that broke under his weight. The third man, the young one, looked at his companions on the ground and at Nahimana standing there, barely breathing hard. He dropped his knife. I didn't want to come. They made me. Nahimana pointed to the door. The young man ran as if being chased by the devil himself. The leader was getting up, dazed. Blood ran from his nose. He looked at Nahimana with hatred and fear. Witch! Demon! Nahimana took 1 step forward, just one. But the man scrambled backward in terror. Then he staggered to his feet and ran for the door, helping his companion out. Silence. Ethan was against the wall, his heart beating wildly. He had just watched his wife, a woman who barely spoke, defeat 3 men in seconds. Nahimana turned to him. Her eyes glowed in the darkness. For the first time, Ethan saw real emotion on her face, concern. Hurt, she asked in a soft voice. Ethan shook his head, unable to speak. She checked the house quickly, making sure no one else was hiding. Then she checked the windows and the door. Finally, she turned to Ethan again. You're going to ask questions, she said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Ethan found his voice. Nahimana, you're a warrior. She nodded slowly. That's why no one wanted me. Dawn found Ethan and Nahimana sitting at the kitchen table. She had made coffee. She had quickly learned how he liked it, and now she waited. Tell me, Ethan said softly. Please, I need to understand. Nahimana looked at her cup for a long time. When she spoke, her words came slowly, as if each cost her effort. When I was a child, my mother died. My father, the chief, didn't know what to do with me. My older brother took me hunting with him, tracking, training. She paused, her fingers tightening on the cup. I learned everything. How to track deer from 3 days away, how to read the weather in the clouds, how to fight. Said I was better than many warriors. That's incredible, Ethan said. Not for my tribe. Her voice hardened slightly. When I turned 15 summers, the warriors started seeking me for marriage. But I could beat them in horse races, shoot arrows farther, track better. And that offended them, humiliated them. Nahimana looked directly at him. An Apache man must be strong, the protector. How can he protect a wife who is stronger than him? What will the other warriors say? Ethan began to understand. So they rejected you one by one. Each suitor found an excuse. She's too tall. Her hands are rough. She doesn't smile enough. But the truth was simple. They were afraid. Afraid their children would respect me more. Afraid of looking weak. That's why you don't talk much, Ethan said slowly. You tried to be less strong, less capable, so someone would accept you. Nahimana nodded, pain crossing her face. I stopped competing, stopped showing my skills. I became silent, invisible. But it was too late. Everyone knew who I really was. No one wanted me. Your father must have felt terrible. It tore him in half. Her voice softened. He loves me, but he also loves his tribe, his traditions. When you saved Tala, he saw an opportunity. A white man wouldn't know my reputation, wouldn't have the same expectations. So he used us, both of us. Nahimana looked at him with those deep eyes. You needed to pass through Apache lands. I needed to escape. My father needed to save his honor. We all gained something. We all lost something. Ethan leaned back in his chair, processing everything. Last night, those men, you could have told me you were on the roof. Would you have believed me capable of being up there? He considered the question honestly. Probably not. That's why I don't speak. It's easier when people underestimate me. It gives me an advantage. Nahimana. Ethan leaned forward. Last night you saved my life, maybe both our lives. Those men were dangerous. I know, that's why I acted, but I'm the man. I'm supposed to protect you. For the first time, something like a smile touched her lips. Why? Because that's how it works. Or is it just what you were taught? Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. He had never thought of that. You're right. He admitted finally. I guess it doesn't matter who protects who. What matters is that we take care of each other. Nahimana studied him with penetrating eyes. It doesn't bother you that I'm strong. It wasn't a question, but Ethan answered anyway. It scared me last night, I won't lie. But bothered. No, I actually feel safer. Impressed. Very impressed. The men in my tribe didn't think that way. Then they're stupid. Ethan said it with such conviction that Nahimana blinked in surprise. Nahimana. In these 2 weeks you fixed things I couldn't. Made plants grow in dead earth. Healed my mare. Repaired fences better than me. And yes, defeated 3 outlaws while I was frozen with fear. So do I see you as less of a woman? No, I see you as more of a human. Ethan searched for the right words. I don't want a decorative wife who only cooks and sews. I want a partner. Someone who works beside me. Someone I can trust. Someone who's real. Nahimana looked down, but Ethan saw something glisten in her eyes. Tears. No one has ever said that to me before. Well, it's the truth. Ethan extended his hand across the table. We can start over. Not as chief and forced wife, as partners, friends, and maybe with time something more. She looked at his hand for a long moment, then slowly placed hers on top. Her palm was rough from work, strong. Warm friends, she repeated. I like that word. As the sun rose, filling the kitchen with golden light, Ethan felt something change. The woman sitting across from him was no longer a mystery that frightened him. She was Nahimana. Complicated, talented, wounded, strong, and for the first time since they met, she smiled. A small smile, but genuine, lighting up her face in an astonishing way. Now she said, we must report the attack and reinforce the defenses. Those men may return. Ethan almost laughed. Of course, Nahimana was already 3 steps ahead. Okay, partner, what do you suggest? And as she began to explain her plan with more words than she had used in 2 weeks, Ethan knew his life had changed forever. And he didn't mind at all. 3 months passed like swift water. The ranch transformed. The defenses Nahimana designed, hidden torture clears throat, torture traps, bell alarm systems, escape routes, made sure no outlaws dared approach again. Word spread, Miller's ranch had Apache protection. Nahimana's garden became the envy of the county. Medicinal plants, vegetables that grew twice as fast, herbs that cured everything from headaches to infected wounds. The neighbors who had once whispered now came asking for help. Mrs. Miller, old Sarah from the neighboring ranch, knocked on the door one morning. My grandson has a terrible fever. The town doctors can't do anything. They say that maybe you, Nahimana, prepared medicine from willow bark and roots. The child healed in 2 days. Sarah wept with gratitude and from that moment defended Nahimana against any negative talk in town. Ethan and Nahimana developed a rhythm. He handled the cattle and heavy repairs. She took care of the garden, the horses, and occasional hunting. They worked side by side, communicating sometimes with words, other times with gestures that had become their own language. At night after dinner, they sat on the porch. Nahimana taught Ethan about the stars, how the Apache used them to navigate, the stories behind each constellation. He taught her about cattle, about business, about how to deal with town merchants who tried to cheat. Gradually the walls between them fell. One night while watching a distant storm, Ethan asked, "Do you miss your tribe?" Nahimana considered the question. "I miss my father, my brother, the mountains where I grew up, the ceremonies." She paused. "But I don't miss feeling wrong all the time. Here, I'm not wrong. She looked at him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. I know. That's why this feels more like home than the camp ever did. Ethan's heart raced. Nahimana, but before he could continue, they saw lights approaching. Many lights, torches. Both stood tense. Outlaws, a mob from town. Nahimana already had her knife in hand. Ethan grabbed his rifle. They waited. The figures emerged from the same darkness. Not outlaws or angry townspeople. Apache. At the front rode Chief with a dozen warriors behind him. Nahimana's brother was at his side. Ethan felt Nahimana tense beside him. They had come to take her back, to punish them for breaking some tradition they didn't know about. The Apache stopped in front of the house. Chief dismounted slowly, his face impossible to read. Father, Nahimana said, her voice firm despite the tension. Why are you here? The chief studied her for a long moment, then looked at Ethan, then back at his daughter. I came to see with my own eyes, he said finally. Traders speak of an Apache healer who saves lives. Travelers speak of a ranch where a woman protects her home like a warrior. Stories travel far. And Nahimana lifted her chin defiant, and I wondered if my daughter was finally happy. Silence stretched, then dismounted and walked toward his sister. His normally serious face softened at the sight of her. Little sister, he said in a rough voice. You look different how? Complete. Smiled. You found your place. Nahimana looked at Ethan, then back at her brother. I found where I can be myself. Chief nodded slowly. Then I did well. I feared I had condemned you to a life of unhappiness. But I see this white man, he looked at Ethan, sees you as I tried to teach our warriors to see you. As equal, as valuable. Ethan stepped forward. Chief, your daughter is more than equal. She has taught me more in 3 months than I learned in years. She has saved me. She has improved my life in every way. I respect her with all my heart. I value her more than I can express. Do you love her? Ethan blinked. He hadn't expected such a direct question. He looked at Nahimana, who watched him with wide, waiting eyes. Yes, he said simply. I love her. Nahimana inhaled softly. It was the first time he had said it. The chief smiled, a real smile that crinkled his weathered face. Good. Then my heart can be at peace. He turned to his warriors. Dismount. We'll camp here tonight. Tomorrow we return with good news for the tribe. Nahimana has found her destiny. That night was a strange and wonderful celebration. The Apaches shared their food and stories. Ethan shared his coffee and his home. Nahimana cooked for everyone, moving between two worlds with grace. Sat beside Ethan. Take care of my sister, white man. I will, I promise. If you don't, I'll return. Smiled, but there was steel in his eyes. And she'll probably help me punish you. Ethan laughed. Of that I have no doubt. When the Apache finally prepared to leave at dawn, Chief hugged his daughter for a long time. You are stronger than any of us understood, he told her. Your mother would be proud. Nahimana had tears in her eyes. I can visit. You will always be welcome. You are my daughter. You are Apache. That will never change. As the riders disappeared over the horizon, Nahimana and Ethan stood together, their hands intertwined. You said you loved me? She said softly. I did. And it's true. Sorry.